Alright, so this is a little bit of a weird video. I don't know exactly how to do this the best way, but we're gonna do it like this. So basically I was to give you some context, I was scrolling through Twitch the other day, and I guess like when you're messing through Twitch, it sort of gives you this, you know, like directory sort of thing where it's like, hey, here's games that you're interested in or whatever, and you can set those games. And just I never really go through the 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross directory, but on the off chance I was like, I'll see who's on, and sort of went to the directory. And I've never been to this man's stream before. His name is Seal6. I'm assuming that's how you say his name. And I noticed that the thumbnail for the video was a screen that I was not very familiar with, so I was like, I wonder what that is. So I clicked on it, and he was playing Labyrinth, of course. So Labyrinth is pretty new. It's not been in the game for very long, only a couple of updates at this point, so it's fair to say that, you know, I don't have the most experience with it, so seeing that screen, you know, kind of caught my eye. And as I came in, he was here. This was where he was at. He had 3 characters. He was sort of working through, you know, the early levels of it, and I don't normally type in chats. I'm always really the kind of guy who just sort of lurks and just watches and, you know, doesn't say anything. But for some reason, as he was playing through, I sort of, you know, got more comfortable with his run, seeing, you know, what he was doing. He was asking his chat and stuff, and I was just like, I'll sort of give my input and everything. And somehow I don't consider myself to be very large as a YouTuber or anything like that, but someone in his chat recognized me, and so for some reason he decided to check me out. And so I don't know, we just kind of sort of started talking while he was doing his run, and I don't know, it just ended up going pretty well. So obviously I didn't end up doing, you know, a lot of the work. You know, he's the one actually playing the game and everything. I just gave him some suggestions here or there, so you'll probably see them, you know, pop up on the screen here or here and there when I'm typing in or whatever, because he has the chat on screen. But he got some pretty good rolls with his characters, and it just ended up being a really fun experience and a really interesting run, and it was just a lot of fun. So you know, I think I was a little bit earlier than this. I think he only had 2 characters when I originally joined, but he did get lucky enough to start with Red Gother, which was obviously a huge win. And then you can see as he gets, you know, later in the run, he actually ends up being able to pick up Red Slater, which is a huge benefit when you're getting to the first boss, because if you don't know, the first boss is Counter Meliodas. And Red Slater actually seals everything except for attack cards. So you can seal his attacks, you can attack seal him with Gother, and you can literally just stall yourself a turn while you're sort of working on putting damage on him, which ended up being very good. And I don't know how much experience he necessarily had with the game mode or anything, but I tried to make sure that to get across the point, like, hey, you definitely want to push as many levels and awakening stars as you can, so that way you can try to out CC as possible, or as much as possible. Like, yeah, you can see me saying like you should get levels here, and yeah, I don't know, it was just kind of fun giving him sort of feedback and letting him know what I was thinking, like, while he was playing through, and it was really fun. So as he gets through, you know, sort of in, he had a lot of like really good luck with keeping attack seals and stuff like that. Nothing really too crazy happened, and this was over the span of an entire hour that I was in here kind of just chilling, hanging out with him and everything, because he was a really cool dude. I'll definitely have a link to his, you know, Twitch channel in the description below if you want to check him out, because I don't know, he's listening to rap music, which I enjoy rap music, and he was, you know, I had seen scrub through some of the VOD and everything while I was grabbing this, and I mean, he plays a lot of the same games that I play, so I mean, I don't know, just cool dude in general, and it was just a fun experience, so figured I would shout him out and sort of, you know, let you guys go over and hang out with him if you feel like it. So yeah, he ends up doing pretty well. He ends up getting through the Meliodas fight fairly easily. I don't think there was really too much that happened. I think he ended up losing maybe a character here. I can't remember super, like, you know, it's been probably like a week or so at this point since this happened, and I'm just now getting around to sort of making the video on it. But yeah, so his Meliodas, I think, has died at this point, and now Helbram is in the front. I want to say Helbram maybe also dies, but I could be wrong. I think, you know, the upgrade and then the 2 Slater cards here actually works out, I think. Yeah, so that ends up doing that, you know, beating Meliodas, which is really, really great. And then pushing into the second floor, he is able to resurrect melee, which is, definitely good. You want to have as much, on your team as possible. And I really don't think that, he didn't end up getting any of the sort of, ultimate level sort of, passives to sort of get your ult a lot faster or anything like that. So I definitely recommended, reviving and stuff like that as much as possible and not really going for the ultimate levels. Apologies for there's no audio for some reason, because I downloaded this off of like a third-party website, because I don't know of any other way to get a Twitch VOD like that. But I did talk to him, and he said it was cool that I could grab it and everything, so that was nice. But yeah, there's no audio, and it's only in 720p, so it might look a little funny on screen, so apologies for that. But I don't think that there was anything super like eventful that happened in the second floor too much. He sort of, every time he got to a shop, he made sure to look through, the passives that he could get. Oh, this is actually interesting. He made sure to look through the passives that he could get, the characters that he could get, if that was an option, if he had enough of the crystals up here to be able to purchase a character, and just making sure that he overall made pretty good decisions. He got to his character select right here, if I can get to it in a decent spot to where you can see the characters that he has an option for. So he has Red Deanne and Green Arthur, which are two very good characters. I voted that he went for Deanne, and he pushed back on that one a little bit, which I'm completely okay with. I mean, it's his run overall. And he ended up going for Arthur, which I think is a fantastic character. Obviously, if you don't know, Arthur makes PvE stuff a lot easier, because you can see increases allies' damage dealt to enemies by 35% and decreases damage taken by 35%. So very, very good passive. The only reason I was suggesting Deanne is because her debuff card is a level 1 attack seal for 2 turns, but it's a single target, and I think it also lowers their defense related stats, so it makes them easier to kill as well. She ended up being one of the characters that I got on my winning run, and she was super helpful. So if you have the option, don't sleep on this Red Deanne. She's actually super good. He ended up going for the Arthur, which is completely understandable. The debuff card for him, if you get it to level 2, it actually seals debuff cards. So that's actually really nice. I don't think he knew that for a while, and I told him, and he was like, oh, like that would actually be really good to know, and ended up coming in handy sort of towards the end of the run. But I don't know, it was just interesting to see sort of like what other characters are rolling and what their like preferences are and everything. And he was saying that he uses, anytime that he's tried to run this, he ends up going for Arthur, and it ends up working out pretty well. So he ended up going for Arthur, ended up doing super good, so really can't complain about that at all. He was super nervous though, and I completely understand, because when I ended up going through mine and I ended up going through my winning run, I got really nervous towards the last like little bit of it, because it was super nerve-wracking, and I didn't want to lose and have to restart the whole thing over and over again. So he was definitely like looking to chat for like confirmation and stuff, like trying to be like, hey, best orientation for the characters, like should I double attack here, or should I go for something else? So there was definitely a lot of situations where it was just fun to sort of interact in the chat, which I don't typically do, so that, I don't know, it was kind of like a standout situation for me, but just overall pretty fun. Next character select was here, and I recommended that he go for Chandler, because Chandler was a really good character to be able to taunt. They're going to hit Chandler, you get a little bit of counter damage off. I had completely forgotten the fact that the boss characters don't, like, they take reduced damage from counters. It didn't end up being like a huge deal, but it was definitely something that you wanted to know, I think, before picking a character like that. It was definitely good for the like all of the other fights in the run, but the boss battles, it was kind of, or I think he ended up getting rid of Chandler before the last fight. But definitely during the droll fight, which is the second boss, it ended up not being so great, but it wasn't the worst in the world. So he's getting a little bit familiar with Chandler here as we push through. I'll try to skip forward, because some of these regular fights really didn't end up being too crazy, a little bit more time consuming than anything, just kind of working your way through. Here was a situation where he got 2 of these ultimate move damage increase passives, but obviously he's not getting his ultimates very often because he doesn't have that 3 ultimate move gauge orb passive already. So we ended up going with the increases the hero's basic stats by 30% if there are 2 or fewer allies on the battlefield at the start of the turn. Actually, no, I don't think we went for that because that doesn't sound familiar at all. I guess we went for this one right here because this one just isn't good. Either that or, okay, he's looking through the shop. So we ended up going for like levels or super awakening here, if I'm not mistaken. Because you definitely want to look through the shop and seeing, just looking and seeing what the passives that you could get are, and if those are going to be like good options that you've rolled, that's always a good option to go for, because extra passives definitely help out a lot. So now we get to Droll. Droll ended up being quite the nemesis. He did go first on the fight, which is obviously great, but this ultimate, I'm pretty sure this is a detonate card. This detonate card does a lot of damage, and so he puts buffs on himself every time he gets attacked, and he slowly gets harder and harder to kill. I think he ends up killing 1 or 2 characters on the team here, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not great, but it ended up working out in the end. So I don't remember exactly. I was trying to get him to just go for as much card space in hand if possible, so that way he could just continue to draw extra stuff, because he can't be attack sealed. The second floor boss and third floor boss cannot be debuffed at all, if I'm not mistaken. So just going for extra damage here, taunting up with Chandler to make sure that you get a little bit of counter damage off, and he's not attacking your other characters is also very, very good. So you can see the counters are not necessarily all that great. He is doing some decent damage here, but it definitely could have been better. But obviously he has a passive for that, so what are you gonna do? Just making sure that we get as much damage off as possible was the main goal. He ends up killing Chandler and Arthur here, Gother, which is super concerning, but he's really close to dead. So I was like, all right, you should have this. Go for damage. Use both of the Arthur cards and you'll be good to go. He ends up beating that, and we revive Gother going into floor 3, which is ideal for sure. Chandler would have been nice to sort of get back online, but at the same time, it is what it is. Gother was obviously going to be much better for the attack ceiling to get through the regular fights and stuff like that as you go along. And then I think next up we have him pulling another character. So he got to this one, and his options were Merlin, Green Easton, Light Liz, or Green King. And I am a really big advocate for the Light Liz. She is pretty tough to kill, and once if you can actually get some attacks off and stuff like that, her passive starts to build up, and she gets the flood card, which is really great. And if you're working on your ultimate move gauge, the AoE also does pretty well. So I convinced him to go for the Light Liz. I thought it was a really great play, and it ended up being pretty good. So I really can't complain with the performance from Liz once again. So as he was sort of making his way through the rest of the board, I just made sure to tell him, make sure you're going for as many awakenings as possible, because at this point he's at level 95, and he ends up messing up a little bit towards the end and going for one of the level spots, whereas it didn't really help anything out, because it ended up just being like a bad call for once you're level 100, or I think he was at like 98 or 99 at the time, so it was just going to be a small increase because you can't go past 100 because that's the max level. So that ended up kind of being a little bit questionable, but there wasn't a whole lot you could do. There was you get locked in these lanes and you can't really go too far left, too far right, or whatever. And so that was pretty much the best option he could have had, to be honest. I can't remember if we end up... I think we go for Sariel here and move Arthur to the back, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say that's what we ended up doing, because that was a pretty good play, just having the Archangel on the team to sort of help Liz do, stuff with her passive, and the counter could help a little bit as well. So I ended up sort of telling him to go for that, because at this point, once you have Liz, the more sins and, archangels you have on the team, you're building up her passive. So he had a pretty good setup here, just being able to, use Gother's cards, use Sariel's cards, and then it helps build up Liz as well. So it ended up going up pretty good. And then once we got to the end, I think he was still missing 2 awakening stars, which ended up making it a little unfortunate because he did not out CC Meliodas, which is a huge negative, like huge con at that point. So he ended up going for the levels here, because he's too far right. He can't go for the awakening stars at this point, so he's 2 super awakening stars down. He is max level, which is great, but there's not really anything you can do at that point. So going into the fight, you can see his total CC is not high enough. I think you have to be 120 or 125 KCC if I'm not mistaken. I know that it's either 120 or 125. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but you can see he doesn't have a whole lot of passives. And Melly's going to go first, which ends up being super scary going into this thing. So as we start off the match, he's going to do a lot of damage. He ends up almost killing Sariel, which ends up, okay, so he has to use all 3 attacks. I'm sorry, I'm misremembering this as we're sort of going through. But he ends up killing Sariel first turn, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but he's going to take reduced damage from counters and stuff as it is. And it starts to look a little grim, but he does have full health. We get the flood card off, and I just tell him to go for as much damage as you possibly can, of course, because that's going to be your best bet. He does have a revive, though, which is very, very scary. So 20% revive, even if we do kill him. The other person in the chat was like, oh no, like you're donezo, like this is over. But it ended up working out surprisingly well, just because of the luck that we ended up having going through the rest of this. So get some good damage off here. The level 3 flood card went really well, got him down a whole lot, and then the AoE did okay. But he didn't pull any Liz cards, but it ended up being alright because he, went for Arthur and absolutely destroyed him. Luckily, he did not go for Liz too much, which ended up helping a lot. Because obviously the more HP you have, the more flood you get off, or the more flood damage, I guess. So he goes for the flood card here, because what else can you do? I think this ends up popping the res, if I'm not mistaken. So boom, does end up popping the res, which is really good. So all of his stats, like stat increases, because he's got assault mode Meliodas as passive, ends up sort of working out there. And he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna have enough. The flood card doesn't need to be, or like he's gonna get reduced damage because you got such little health from the flood. He ends up getting an insane merge for the 3-star, the gold star flood card here, and we're like, okay, like here it is. Hope and pray, and then boom, he ends up doing enough damage and beats it. He's super happy. It was just a super fun, very memorable experience, and it was really cool to see him sort of like work his way through it and just end up getting the victory and everything, which was super, super cool. So you can even see me in the chat. But I don't know, it was just very enjoyable. So if you guys are interested at all, go watch people on Twitch and help them out if you're able, or whatever the case may be, or I don't know, if you want to check out Seal 6, he's a pretty cool dude. And that's pretty much it for me. So I don't know, kind of a weird video, not used to making content like this or anything. Sorry there was no audio in the background. I'm sure I'll put some music in the back for the video, but yeah, very enjoyable, very fun. So either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Check him out, link in description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.